Now we will look at how to complete the redetermination process for CCIE and TENF cases. Just like in DCBS cases, CCIE and TENF cases will appear in your workbasket 45 days before the redet date. No later than 30 days before the end date, a 90F must be sent to the client. On the 90F, we will let the client know the date and time for their redetermination appointment, as well as the exact date of expiration for the case. If you will notice, our appointment is within 15 days of the date we are sending the 90F. Next, we will list the information needed to complete the redet process. At a minimum, we will need to ask for household verification and 2 months prior of income information for the adults in the household. It is a good idea to indicate what months we are asking for so that there is no confusion. In this case, the appointment will be in March. Therefore, we need to ask for January and February pay information. These 2 months prior hold true regardless of the date and the month the appointment is set for. In other words, even if the appointment is the very last day of the month, we will still ask for the 2 full months prior to the appointment date. Additionally, we could ask for the client to bring school schedule information and verification of any unearned income, if that situation would apply to them. We will give a due date as the date of the appointment. And in the bottom paragraph, we will use the redet date as the last day the information can be returned. We will then return to KICS and print our case form. We need to print the DCC 90C from the list that's provided and use the appointment due date as the date that the information needs to be returned by. On the case summary screen, we need to make a note regarding the information that was sent and requested. Save our case comment, and then place the file in the pending drawer for the date of the appointment. On the date of the appointment, we will use the information provided by the client to complete the redet process. We will need to work our way through the screens verifying the information that the client has brought in. Using the household verification, we will make sure that all of the household members are still active and that there are no new members to add. We'll also verify the address and phone number. Once the demographic information has been reviewed, we will save the case details and move on to the next screen. It is especially important that we update the income information with the pay stubs provided. To do this, we will click on the employer name and then choose the Update button. Let's say that the client has provided 4 pay stubs for the months of January and February. It's a biweekly pay, so that would be appropriate. After reviewing the pay stubs, we have determined that the total worked hours across those 4 pay stubs is 198. Next, we need to determine what the average hours per pay period are, and we do so by dividing the total hours of 198 by 4, which equals 49.5 hours per pay period. We need to know what the average is per week, so we will need to divide the 49.5 down to the number of weeks per pay period. In this case, since it's biweekly, that means that there are 2 full weeks in each pay period. 49.5 divided by 2 is 24.75, and that is what we'll enter in this section here. Now we will enter the amount for each pay stub. The first one is $420. We are entering the gross amount before any deductions are taken out, whether voluntary or involuntary. The next one is for $385. The next for $396. And finally, the last pay stub was for $392. Once we have entered this information, we will choose Save. And as you can see, the computer has given us the new monthly earnings rate. It ended the information on the last day before the interview and then started the new information on the date of the interview. Once you have saved this information, you will move on through the rest of the case, updating information as needed. At the eligibility process screen, we will need to choose our eligibility type, which will be CCIE, and we will also need to select our reason, which would be work with income eligible. Choose Next. On the summary screen, verify the changes are correct and hit Finish. At Docs Needed, verify any changes in the copay and the effective date. If the copay is to increase, it will take effect in 10 days or the first day of the new eligibility period, whichever is lesser. Decreases in copay will take effect on the date of the interview. If the client was missing any documentation to complete the process, you will mark it in this section by choosing the child, then the parent, then check the missing information. You should note, this checklist is not like a shopping cart where documents will then be printed. All it is doing is flagging the case as not being completed for the time being. Once you've marked the missing documents, you will click Save This Person and repeat the process for each child in the case. The client will then be given a 90F for any missing documents at this time. If all the documents were presented at the interview, you may then choose No Documents Needed, If you are using the 90I to calculate hours and schedule, it is a good idea to have the client complete this before updating enrollment information. If the case is completed, then you will print the 94 and 94C and have the client sign during the appointment. If the redet cannot be completed at this time because of missing documents, then you will not be able to print the 94 until the case is complete. First, you will need to allocate the copay, and then create the 94 and 94C. Although we have not changed providers, we will need to get signatures for the new eligibility period on the certificate. From here, we will move to the Forms section where we will print the application and 91. At this time, we will explain all the documents to the client and have the client sign and date. If the case has been approved for another year, then we will also need to complete a 105. As you can see here, we have indicated the approval period, the copay and date that it will be effective, and the children that have been approved for care. We have also included the household information as well as the income information. We will give copies of all signed documentation to the client and maintain the originals in the file. Return to KICS, where you will make your history notes regarding the interview process. Be sure to indicate what was provided, how it was used, and what information was given to the client. From this point, you will complete the case as appropriate for the outcome. If the case was able to be completed, then you will print the history notes and place on top of the documentation associated with the redet. Put all of the documentation into a DCC 202 and then place the file in the actives drawer. If the case was unable to be completed at the time of the interview, enter the history notes and place the file in the pending drawer for 10 days before the redet date, so that a 105 can be sent to the client advising of upcoming case termination. If the client returns the missing information before the end date, then you will complete the redet process as described earlier. If the client does not return the missing information, the case will automatically terminate on the redet date. Once you have sent the 105 to the client 10 days before the redet date, print the notes and place them in the file. Then place the file with the other discontinued cases.